On February 24th, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and immediately refugees began to flee to the west, all except the men. All men 18 to 60 are required to remain in Ukraine. Now, for perspective, this is what the map looks like. The Russians control much of the Donbass and areas along the Black Sea coast. Within the first few weeks, there were 10,000 refugees per day arriving in a little town in Poland at the border called Przemysl. This town only has a population of about 60,000, so 10,000 per day was way too many for them to handle. Their train station is the first stop inside Poland, so refugees came by train, they came by bus, and they came on foot. The mayor immediately established a humanitarian aid center at the bus station, and he declared that refugees must move on after 48 hours. There are over 1,000 cots inside this converted Tesco grocery store. We're not allowed to take photographs inside. By early May, most of the volunteers had returned home. So I immediately contacted a couple of friends of mine, Greg from Nashville and Dale from Santa Barbara, and I asked if they wanted to join me. Did they have the means, did they have the time, and did they have the passion? Both of them said, I'm in. And the mission was a go. We each began gathering supplies, everything from syringes to energy bars, feminine hygiene products, and Israeli compression bandages, something that was called for by the Ukrainian Society of Wisconsin, saying was desperately needed. So as I did my research, I soon learned that a good portion of humanitarian aid ends up in the black market, or worse, literally in the hands of the Russians. After 75 years of communism, graft has become a way of life. I was determined to find a way to guarantee that the goods that we brought went to where they were intended. They reached the Ukrainian military. I needed to find someone in Poland whom I could trust. And that someone was, I'm going to pronounce this best way I can, Zbigniew Zijic, who was the district governor of Rotary in Yaroslav, Poland. I sent him a message via email using Google Translate, since I don't speak Ukrainian. I said, what do you need? And he replied, we need medicine, medical supplies, but most importantly, we need you. So my friends and I flew to Vienna. We rented a box truck and loaded up 9 suitcases that we brought with us, 7 boxes of military clothing that I had sent ahead, and 3 pallets of medical supplies that we bought there in Vienna. And from there, we drove through the Czech Republic, crossed the border into Poland at Ostrava, and eventually made our way into Przemysl, Poland, about a 10-hour drive. The next day, we were met by the local Rotarians, whom I gave all a t-shirt as a goodwill gesture from my home club, Rotary Amigos in Milwaukee. There were also 2 women there from Ukraine, one from Cherkasy, Ukraine Rotary Club, and the other from Lviv. They helped us unload all the medical supplies. Note that large black suitcase in the front that we delivered on May 16th. I want to show you that in a minute. So Marina and Svetlana were responsible for transporting all of the goods that we brought to the front lines and, importantly, providing proof of its arrival. The local Rotary Club held a dinner in our honor of the 3 American freedom fighters, they called us, and showered us with gifts, locally made pipes, olive oil, sunflower oil, and Polish vodka. We crossed into Ukraine briefly, at least so that I would know what it looked like and what it felt like to actually walk the Freedom Road into Poland. Refugees who walk across the border find a long line of humanitarian aid stations manned by people from all over Europe. I even found a tent manned by a woman from Boston, a Rotarian there named Jane Elliott. She was a volunteer on the Freedom Road, and we left a suitcase full of items with her. 4 busloads of women and children arrived in the 1 hour that we were at the actual humanitarian aid center. The World Central Kitchen provides free food. Others offered free pet care, cell phone charging stations, or emergency health care services. There was even a play area for the children with a bounce house, all manned by volunteers from all over Western Europe and a few from the United States. Note the porta potties in this picture. They actually were built in Minnesota. I found that kind of interesting. I'm not sure how they got there, but I found it interesting that they were there. You remember that big black suitcase? This is a picture of it here in my office on May 10th, a couple of days before we left. I bought it for $10 at Goodwill, not having any intention of returning home with it. I had it filled with medical supplies, and I delivered it to the women from the Ukrainian Rotary clubs on May 16th. On May 28th, I received these photos of the goods arriving in Cherkasy, Ukraine, which is a major distribution area for the eastern Donbass region. And on June 6th, I received these photos of the goods arriving in a little town called Bakhmut, which is right at the front. What we delivered to Przemysl found its way to Bakhmut in the Donbass region of Ukraine, nearly 1,000 miles away. The net result is that we delivered over $15,000 worth of medical supplies directly to the Ukrainian military and over $4,000 in supplies to Ukrainian refugees coming into Poland, all because of Rotary. I want to thank my Rotary friends around the world because Rotary made it possible. To that I say mission accomplished.